What do I need to know after my divorce or custody case is finalized in court? I'm going to give you four real world things to think about and to know that are really super relevant in the immediate aftermath of the month or two after the court legal part of your case is done in court. And these are four things that are just important for you to understand and just be clear in terms of what's realistic after the legal part of your case is over. Okay, ready? Number one, how is child support or maintenance spousal support? How are those two streams of income? How does that money actually get to you, right? In a divorce judgment, it says that your ex-husband has to pay you $1,000 a month in child support. Okay, that's a court order, and that's great, but that doesn't get you that $1,000. Okay, how do you get that $1,000? Generally speaking, from the day that child support order is entered, let's say it's on the 1st of October. If you're the person receiving that child support, you're not going to actually see that first $1,000 for probably at the earliest, the 1st of November, and probably more realistically, somewhere around the middle or 10th-ish of November. So somewhere between 30 to 45 days is my experience in terms of receipt of that first child support payment, okay? You just need to know that, because once you get that first payment, after that first payment, it will just follow the pay cycle at the employer where your ex-husband works. But for that initial payment, just so you're clear on things, what happens with child support and spousal support is that court order goes to the ex-husband's employer. Let's just say it's Microsoft. Microsoft and then sends $1,000 to this place, the Illinois State Disbursement Unit. And then the Illinois State Disbursement Unit sends that to you as the other parent. So once that cycle gets going, it's a good kind of efficient cycle. But you need to know that that first payment is about 4 to 6 weeks before you start actually receiving that money. You got it? Okay. So that's real world number one. You just need to know how support gets paid. Now, what's real world number two? Name change. Okay. It's pretty common. Most common picture being a female who took her husband's last name over the course of a marriage, and now their marriage is dissolved. It is very common to put in a divorce judgment that if I'm the wife, now have the legal right to change my name to something else, right? So if my married name was Jill Olson, and now I got divorced, and I want to resume use of my former name of, Jill Smith, I'm going to put that in the divorce judgment. But again, that piece of paper in the court file, that court order, that doesn't do anything by itself. How do you actually make that name change stuff happen? Well, here's what you do. You change IDs. That's what you do. The advice that I give is, this is the Illinois Secretary of State's website. And you'll notice, what are some of the acceptable ID documents? Court order, right? And, here is Social Security, adult name change on Social Security card, divorce decree. So how do you real world change your name? You get one or both of those IDs in place, because then everything after that, right? Whether it be a lease on a new house, a lease on a new car, a credit card, a bank account, just everything can flow because now it's like, Chase Bank, I want an ID, Comcast Internet, I want an ID, and then everything will be in the new name. Okay, so how is support paid? Number one, name change, you got that. Number two, get those IDs changed. Number three, what's important? Beneficiaries on accounts, investments, insurance, change them. Okay, change them if you don't want your ex-wife to, get that $250,000 life insurance policy if you pass away and you don't want her to. Okay, that's a big one, because a lot of things get handled in the divorce, but a lot of the beneficiaries, to make just a very general statement on bank accounts, 401ks, IRAs, there are all sorts of financial products out there, and most of them do offer me as the account holder the right to list a beneficiary. It's actually kind of a cheap and simple way to do estate planning. But after a divorce, you may not want your ex-wife coming into your 401k, insurance, bank account, etc. So change those beneficiaries, or if an accident happens, that money you might have wanted to go to maybe a new spouse, maybe a parent, maybe a sibling, maybe your kids. It's now going maybe to this ex-spouse who, you probably don't want that person to be seeing that money, because, that's probably why you were getting your marriage dissolved in the first place. So how is support paid? Number two, how does a name change happen? Number three, make sure you're changing beneficiaries if you don't want an ex named on those accounts. And let's talk final thing to kind of need to know after a divorce is, when might it be wise or even possible to pull the case back into court? Okay, let me do a little sort of letter A and B underneath the reasons or situations where a case might want to be put back into court. Number one is a modification to a judgment. And well, let's talk about it like this. A property settlement in a divorce is final when it's final. You get divorced the next day, or basically real time, that property settlement is final. However, spousal support is one thing that's changeable. And then the much bigger category of things that's changeable or modifiable is basically everything related to minor children. So keep that in mind. If there's something funny going on and the parenting time needs to be set up, or something severe like child abuse, or child's really struggling in school, or some weird stuff where like even the majority of the parenting time needs to change, that sort of thing is a very common post-judgment sort of modification. Okay, so that's a reason to pull something into court after the fact, is if you want to modify something particularly related to children. And then sort of letter B, in terms of what might be a reason to push something in court, would be enforcement. There's something in the order that you don't necessarily need change, but you need it followed. And, you need to whack somebody over the head a little bit, or to be put more clearly, you need a judge to find somebody in contempt of court for, somebody was supposed to refinance the mortgage on a house and, pay you half of the value, and he or she didn't do it. Somebody was ordered to pay child support and they're not doing it. Somebody was ordered to give you half of their 401k and they're refusing to sign off on some of the documents. So those are the two reasons you might want to pull a case back into court after the fact, is if you need to modify some things, or B, you need to enforce, or you need the court to enforce some things. So what do you need to know after your divorce or custody case is done in court? You need to know how child support and spousal support get paid. You need to know how to functionally change your name. You need to know that it's important to change beneficiaries, and you need to know what are good reasons to pull your case back into court sometimes even after it's done.